Okay, Roberto, well, I know you already quite a long time.
Yes.
You came here in the Netherlands, I think about 20 years ago or something.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, to introduce our book in Dutch, which
Yes.
you couldn't read. But
That's right, but I thought it was great.
It was about the outline of cultural formulation.
I was very happy you did it.
Okay.
It was one of the first books that I knew about it.
Okay.
That had been such a concerted effort to
Yeah.
write about it. So
Yeah.
I was very, very happy to not only come, but to see the book, even though I couldn't read it.
Yeah.
And the fact that there were 17 cases was also something substantial at the time. Nobody had done that either.
Yeah. So to put it right, it's very hard to buy it at the moment.
Oh, really?
You can buy it, but it's a little bit expensive. I think they made a reprint of it.
Oh, well, that's good. They have a reprint.
But they still have it in stock.
Oh. You gave me a copy, so I can't.
Cultuurclassificatie.
I already have mine.
Yes. Yeah. Cultuurclassificatie en diagnose. Yes. And in fact, coming back to you, because you are in fact, one of the founding fathers of the outline for cultural formulation, or maybe the founding.
No, not quite. But yes, thank you. I participated in the early effort. But the people who put the outline together were really Juan Message and Byron Good, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
Even though I've asked and been participated in it, it's a little unclear who did the first draft. I asked Byron.
Yeah.
And he wasn't entirely sure if he had done it or Juan had done it. Or,
okay.
Yeah, but we were, at the time, we also did a very small field trial.
Okay.
And so I was part of the group that worked on it, including doing some of the cases for the field trial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And coming back to you, because, well, you have a very multicultural background. You were raised in Puerto Rico.
Yes.
By a Puerto Rican mother and an American father.
Right.
And you spoke Spanish when you were young, or
Yes.
Yeah.
They made the decision to start with Spanish.
Okay.
And I remember the time when my father took me into his study to show me English.
Okay.
And so I must have been very young, but 3, 4, I vaguely remember, but it had to do with this famous series of books by Dr. Seuss.
Okay.
I don't know if they're famous up here, but this was The Cat in the Hat.
Okay.
And so they made a movie out of it even and everything many years later. So I remember learning English from him. And then I learned it in school. We all in Puerto Rico take English in school.
Okay.
As a subject. So.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, the other subjects were in Spanish, but the English class was in English. But in high school, some classes were also in English.
Yeah, yes. And then you went back to the States, finishing your study at Harvard.
Yes, I lived in Puerto Rico through high school, so I graduated high school in Puerto Rico. We would visit family in the States, but that was the extent of my going to the US. My daily life was in Spanish. English was something I understood from my father, and I practiced with my father, and something I took in school. And I read in English, but I went to college, and that's where I started my sort of being in the United States for about 18 years after that. Okay. And then I went back to Puerto Rico for about 5 years.
Okay.
And then I came to New York.
Okay. So you're the migrant in person.
Yes, I'm not the migrant, but one of them. Yes, I've migrated. Yeah. Puerto Rico is complicated because we're U.S. citizens, so I didn't have to go through the migration issues that a lot of people have to go through.
Well, we shouldn't talk about Puerto Rico at the moment because it has still this aftermath of the hurricane and like that. Yes. But you felt something like a migrant when you first came into...
Yes, very much so. Even though Puerto Rico is a part politically of the United States in this complicated relationship, and even though my father was American and I had American cousins who had nothing to do with Puerto Rico, other than my father, I felt like a foreigner.
Okay.
Because Puerto Rico is a different culture.
Yeah.
And also, my mother was a member, a leader of the independence movement of Puerto Rico. And so there was also this political thing about Puerto Rico being separate and different. And the area of my mother's work in politics was in culture.
Okay.
So she was in the theater and in political culture, sort of theater culture, recitals of poetry, politics related to those things.
Okay.
And so I was very much aware of the cultural differences between Puerto Rico and the U.S.
Yeah. And that is still now, there's still a large difference in culture between Hispanic-speaking persons coming to the United States and Americans.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Like anywhere, you know, it's a big difference in a big geographic difference, language difference, all sorts of reasons, political reasons, historical reasons. It's not unique. Every group that has a unique culture and goes to somewhere else has a cultural gap to deal with. It's just that being Latin American in the US also involves a lot of political and discriminatory and historical reasons why there are tensions.
Okay.
I mean, half of the United States or so, or a third, let's say, was part of Mexico until the middle of the 19th century.
Yeah.
And that war is still very much alive in some ways in the minds of the people who live in that area or who migrate to the Southwest. So it's not an innocent difference of cultures. Well, I suppose it never is innocent because there's always power differences, but this difference is pretty impressive. And of course,
because in fact the Spanish were the first colonizers of Americas.
Of the Americas, yes.
Yeah. Together with the Dutch, maybe.
I suppose, yes. A little bit later, the Dutch, and then the English.
Yeah. And then French. After that the English.
And the Danes, and almost everybody. Yeah.
And the French, yeah. And that is one of the reasons that you became interested in cultural psychiatry too.
Yeah, I think it stems from the fact that I come from a place, Puerto Rico is originally, if you will, a frontier, a vanguard of acculturation questions, because since 1898, when what we call in Puerto Rico the change in sovereignty, when the sovereignty left from, stopped being Spain and sovereign power and became the United States in the Spanish-American War of 1898. Since then, there has been an acculturation question. Because in Puerto Rico, if you never left Puerto Rico and went to the U.S., you were, in some ways, a migrant in your own country for a while, because the U.S. imposed U.S. citizenship, the U.S. tried to impose a language. The U.S. changed the name of the country to Puerto-Rico. I mean, it wasn't a small amount of interference for a number of decades. It was very large. My grandmother was the only woman who refused U.S. citizenship in Puerto Rico in 1917. So it goes back in some ways in my family.
She became Spanish?
No, at that point your choice was nothing or U.S. citizenship. Yeah, you could apply to another country to become a citizen, but it would have been hard to become a Spanish citizen in Puerto Rico. And so eventually she married my grandfather, who had not refused citizenship, and became a U.S. citizen that way.
So you noticed, because you did your medical school at Harvard, isn't it? Or?
At Yale.
At Yale.
Yeah.
And then you specialized in psychiatry.
Yes.
And
that was at Harvard.
That was in Harvard back.
Right. So I went back and forth for a while, and I went to divinity school. So I did a master's degree in religion between college and medical school, and I became interested in the idea of going to medical school. I had been pre-med, as we call it, in college, but then I decided not to do it. And I thought about becoming a professor of comparative religion.